ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And of course, you are with us. You are with us at Durian ASEAN. We will be providing you more news at our ASEAN Daily. So, Gowri, to start off the news today, just a bit of a mention on the hoo-ha that happened 2 days ago, which was the Anwar Ibrahim verdict. So, subsequent to that, his daughter, Nurul Nuha, actually is leading a campaign to release him, Anwar Ibrahim.
Yes, she is. And this was actually not only reported by our local paper, but it made some news all over Asia, actually. And a lot of people, even when Anwar got arrested, a lot of international media actually had a major reaction to the issue, and also now to the news of his daughter leading this March to Freedom, as they called it, as a campaign for her family to free Anwar Ibrahim.
Mm-hmm. We seldom actually hear about Nurul Nuha. I mean, my memory serves me right. We always hear about Nurul Iza and
that's right.
And how she's the beacon for the new hope for the younger generation. But the reality is, 90s kids like you, Gowri, maybe have more things in common with his younger daughter Nurul Nuha, in a way, I believe.
Maybe. Well, I wouldn't know unless I get to know her by herself.
The reason why I raised this because I've been having this observation about the younger generation, those who are born post 1990s. They seem to have very little recollection of the 98 Reformasi generation. They seem to very much have very little even idea about Anwar's struggles in the late 90s. So I think having his younger daughter to lead this campaign would be actually good for the younger generation to reconnect back on the Anwar case. As you all know, Anwar has been in and out of courtroom for so long, for so many years, and so many issues happen in between those years that you need to reignite back.
And even back when I was a kid, maybe, of course, at that time, Dr. Mahathir or Tun M was in charge, and we hear a lot about him, about how much he's doing for Malaysia in terms of modernization, and of course, we also hear about Anwar Ibrahim and all the controversies, but it's pretty much in fragments that you don't really get to follow until you get actually much older and you start doing your own research, and then you find out the whole story behind the whole Anwar Ibrahim case, from the first sodomy to the second one, and where how it has led up to what happened 2 days ago.
So the campaign that she's she's leading will be March to Freedom campaign, which will be domestically happening, as well as she will bring this campaign out overseas. Another breaking news. There are actually two breaking news that we are going to report outside of Southeast Asia. Number one is about the Seoul airport, where 2 killed in a 100-car pile-up near the Seoul airport. This is amazing. It's like a movie set, I suppose.
It is, but at the same time, it's also a major tragedy. They had 2 people killed and 43 people who were injured, and 5 of them were actually of foreign nationals. And this happened on the way to South Korea's largest international airport. And this pileup had appeared to have been started when actually a limousine ran into the back of a car, and then from there, more than 100 vehicles somehow just added up to the pile, so like a domino effect thing.
Oh, rich people with their limousines. but it's kind of sad to hear this kind of news, even though it might be a bizarre news, 100 car piling up, but you just question yourself, like, why this is happening in the first place, what actually came into the mind of the driver of the limousine.
That's right. Yeah. And it's also to do with the speed limit a lot, I think, because one of the guys said that he slowed down a lot, but he still rammed into the pile of cars. I mean, they're heading to the airport I'm pretty sure everybody was rushing at the time. It was the highway, and all these people are driving all these expensive
Maybe.
cars, and all that factors added up to the fact that
You know
one
who
car
who they should learn how to drive cars better?
from
But-
you.
For Malaysians. Malaysians are very good at driving very fast.
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully. Not a good example to learn, of course. Another breaking news that we want to report is in Taiwan. So apparently 6 inmates take prison staff hostage. Wow.
And this is another tragedy that also shook the region yesterday, where we had 6 inmates in Taiwan who were actually armed somehow, and they took 3 jail staff into hostage in the city of Kaohsiung. I hope I pronounced that correctly, in Taipei itself.
See, I
And-
told you. It's a movie set for Hollywood.
okay. I think it's pretty sad what happened here. And also the 6 of them who are in jail for a variety of crimes, including manslaughter, robbery, and drugs, actually they were demanding their release from prison, but that did not happen. So they decided to take hostages and start negotiating.
So it's
with the
still
people.
ongoing.
It is ongoing.
And apparently they are still negotiating like how much ransom money that they
Mhm.
should be given to the kidnappers. And also, of course, they want their freedom back. Which
And yeah, of course, Taiwan has already sent their special force to the scene. And we have to wait and see what will be the update, and hopefully no one gets hurt in the process while the negotiations are happening.
So, Gowri, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
What are you going to do on Saturday? This week, Saturday?
I'm not sure yet. Why?
So, there's been a lot of hoo-ha on Valentine's Day. I mean, even at Durian ASEAN later on our Durian Hit, we'll
Yeah.
be talking about Valentine's Day.
Speaking of, I don't believe in Valentine's Day, and I think it's just really dumb.
So you don't believe in Valentine's Day?
I do not believe in Valentine's Day.
You don't believe in the commercial aspect of Valentine's Day, or just the whole idea of loving one person?
The
for
whole
that one
idea
day?
of it itself, I think, has been misconstrued because it's supposed to be for love, but you don't really need any day to remind you about the people you love. You think of them all the time, and you are constantly expressing your love, your feelings for them, and there's no reason to wait for this one special day of the year that happens, and everyone's going hoo-ha and like buying chocolates and flowers, like, oh, this is a special day, when it's really just another
Well, I
day.
need to be reminded of my own birthday to know
Uh-huh.
that I turned 30 this year.
Oh, okay.
So I think having a symbolic day to address certain things, certain issues, certain whatever, to me is not a problem.
Mhm.
But of course, different people have different reasons on why they celebrate Valentine's or not. But in the case of Thailand, there's a moral panic here. So you think only Muslim majority countries have the moral panic on Valentine's Day, but even non-Muslim countries have their own panic as well.
Yeah, see, this goes back to what I say. Condoms, moral panic. They always think that, oh, on this one day, everyone's suddenly gonna go and like have sex. Like
Everyone's going to be like,
premarital sex or
let's schedule
underage
to
sex."
have it on that day, okay?
Right.
Not any other day on
But
that
no
day.
one does that. When you want to do it, you just go ahead and do it, right? Who waits
Yeah.
for one special day? And that was exactly what I was trying to convey earlier. And it seems, yeah, so Thailand is freaking out at the moment, thinking that this is gonna contribute to unwanted pregnancies, the spread of HIV and AIDS, which pretty much happens throughout the whole year
Yeah.
in every country
And
in
guess
the
what
world.
they are doing, which is kind of cool if it happens in Malaysia, of course,
Mhm.
is the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration.
What is Bangkok?
Sorry, my pronunciation in the early morning. So the Bangkok
Yeah.
Metropolitan Administration has announced that they will distribute more than, guess how many? 3 million condoms
Wow.
on the day of Valentine's.
That's a lot of condoms.
That's the thing, right? Can you imagine it happens in Malaysia?
See, this goes back to my point again. You know who are the happiest people during Valentine's Day? The chocolate sellers, the teddy bear sellers, the flowers, and also people who sell condoms. Because Thailand bought 3 million condoms and they're distributing it out for free.
I
to
think
get
people will actually take the condoms and save
And
it
just
for the rest of
stash
the
it.
year.
Exactly. Just stash in their
It's like,
collection. Like,
you know how
okay.
how expensive condoms can be, right? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, they
So,
would.
another issue here is also about the whole idea of sex, sex education, and how it's still a taboo topic, but not just in Thailand, right? Most of the countries, even in Malaysia until today, we don't really hear about parents having the talk with their kids and explaining to them and giving them guidance or advice on how to have safe sex. It's just like no sex at all.
Yeah, there's this idea that sex education will increase the likelihood of young people having sex. Well, that might be true, but at the same time, young people would discover or would have sex anyway. I mean, there's the internet, of course, and there are their friends who would probably provide materials. But so the question is, where how can they get the information the right way without going through all this, like the internet and their friends and all that, and getting all confused and curious? I think with sex education or not, young people will still be curious on that because it's part of our biological makeup anyway.
And that is true. When you're at that age, you want to explore things. It's bound to happen. If you're gonna do it, then you're gonna do it. And
Yeah.
it totally has nothing to do with Valentine's Day. And if you actually encourage them to have safe sex, it actually reduces the likelihood of all that problems that they are worried about.
Or at least it makes them more aware of their role as a teenager and their awareness about the responsibility of having sex.
Exactly. And what are the precautions that they have to take?
That it might lead to pregnancy. Are they ready to be a father or mother for that particular child? And I think these are the kinds of awareness that sex education can provide in a way. We will take a short break, but when we return, we will have more ASEAN Daily News.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hello, this is Gowri.
And of course, you're with us again on the ASEAN Daily. So, China is actually resettling refugees fleeing the Myanmar clashes. Wow, China is doing a good thing, right?
It is a very positive and encouraging news from China. It seems that they are resettling the refugees who are into the southwestern Yunnan province after their government forces clashed with the MNDAA, which is the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army in the Kokang region. And
I almost thought it's Kongkang. Kokang
it was
region.
pretty close. And it seems the situation in Myanmar's northern region actually somehow impacts China, whether directly or indirectly. And the China-Myanmar border, in a way, has some jeopardizing effect, which is why China has stepped in to actually try and solve the problem through peaceful talks.
I'm actually very proud of China in this case. Of course, China has always been quite prominent in terms of its human rights problem. But in this case, I think China is being the better brother here at taking steps in ensuring there are dialogues happening between the Myanmar government and also the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army. And I think what this could be is, it could lead to ceasefire, and hopefully there will be peaceful dialogues between two parties on how to ensure that, there will be a smooth democratic transition for Myanmar. I mean, eventually that's what their goal is.
Yes, and of course the admirable thing here is that China has actually stepped in to do something that the other countries around it, or even Myanmar itself, is not doing. And China is actually taking that responsibility to make sure that things get better in Myanmar, which we have been waiting for a very long time for either people in Myanmar or the surrounding countries, or even ASEAN itself, to step in and to do what China did.
Where's ASEAN?
Exactly.
Where is ASEAN?
And they are not the ones who have stepped in and organized or try to get these two parties to come together and talk. It's actually China, surprisingly.
If ASEAN want to remain relevant in today's ASEAN community, especially with its team people-centered ASEAN, of course, it has to care about these kind of small clashes, especially ethnic clashes, even though it has this policy of non-partisan or it doesn't really dwell into the problems of the individual countries. But in this case, talking about the Kokang ethnic rebels, the government actually previously launched airstrikes on the region, and this is the problem is the government of Myanmar is famous for having clashes with its ethnic groups. Of course, the most famous one would be the Rohingya and the Karen, but actually a lot of its fringes ethnic outside of Yangon have problems with the Myanmar government.
And also, it seems that the government forces said they attacked in self-defense, that the Arkokang army actually attacked first and tried to undermine their current peace and stability in the region, which is very questionable, because I would like to ask them, what peace and stability do you have right now with all the different clashes that's happening between the army, between the minority groups, the marginalized group, and there's a lot of things that they themselves need to resolve. And when they talk about peace and stability, in what context exactly?
That is definitely spot on. And I mean, in a way, China needs to exert its power. I think this is the right time for China to show, hey, I'm the bigger brother here, and become a responsible bigger brother at ensuring Myanmar is not bullying its ethnic minorities. On the other hand, we have Jakarta. So you remember that Chinese Jakarta governor, Ahok?
I do.
I like his name. It sounds like
love his name. It's very local.
It's very local. I mean, I think Malaysians can relate to, right? Ahok. It's like the guy down the street selling you char kway teow and all that.
That's right.
But you know, apparently Ahok is urging to declare the state of emergency in Jakarta. And the National Disaster Mitigation Agency, or BNBP, is called on the governor, which is named Ahok, or his real name is Basuki Jahaja Purnama. I prefer Ahok, to declare a state of emergency in the capital city. As you all know, right now, Jakarta is facing a really bad flood. In previous time it was the northeast state of Malaysia, but now is in Jakarta.
And according to him, with the announcement of a state of emergency, it will actually make it easier for them to handle all the flood victims. And also in line with the law, these regional heads have the authority to declare a state of emergency, and without that, actually, no budget will be allocated for them, even though they're in trouble and they're looking for help. And
interesting. I'm not sure how in Malaysia this kind of system work, because it would be pretty interesting for for Malaysian government, whether it's federal or state, to actually have those kind of system ahead, to declare, for example, Kelantan in a state of emergency. So Kelantanese government can actually source out budget from the federal, extra budget to help the victims in their local residence.
Actually, I was just about to bring that up as well, because when we had the whole flood issue, although it was one of the worst floods in our history, there was no state of emergency that was declared. And of course, we didn't have the right people at the country at the time as well.
But the problem is Ahok is not even Jokowi. He is just a governor.
But we have someone who is of that stature?
Well, we have the chief minister of Kelantan in this case, although it's passed, but they could have done something. And the best thing would be to declare the state of emergency for the state of Kelantan. And a few other states, of course, that are being hit hard by the flood. I feel that the problem with Malaysia right now, we should learn from Indonesia. I mean, sadly to say, they are better at providing this kind of crisis management,
like overtaking us. Sorry, not taking over.
I'm actually proud of Jakarta and how they are handling things regarding on the flood. I'm really proud of them.
And it's probably also because like you mentioned, yes, we do have the chief minister of Kelantan, and yes, our prime minister was not around at that time. But did they have an SOP that they could follow, which is probably why they didn't do anything about
Probably
it.
they never even
And we
thought
were
about
all,
it.
Yeah, we were all just helpless, like, oh, no prime minister, what are we gonna do?
And then crying
Because-
out loud.
Exactly,
And then-
because no one had any procedure that they could, okay, so if a flood happens, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to declare so that people can get help immediately.
I actually was quite furious that all that they can do was pointing fingers at the prime minister for doing golfing with Obama. Of course, you know, the prime minister has its responsibility towards the state of Kelantan, but at the same time, what about the past government? Where is your responsibility? Where is your SOP? You have so many SOP on Hudud, but why don't you spare some time to create an SOP for natural disaster
Exactly, but it's best
rather than blaming God?
Yeah, it's best to always take precautions instead of just trying to suddenly just panic and not being able to fix the problem when it happens.
So anyway, we'll take another short break. We will have more news from Southeast Asia later on after the break.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
We are back again. So today, early on we reported about East Timor. Its premier or prime minister is resigning, but today we also have a news about East Timor. Apparently, East Timor is appointing its former health minister as the next premier to replace the current previous one.
Yes, they call him actually the independence hero, who was Gusmao. We talked about him a few days back, that he's been in power for, was it nearly 14 years?
Oh yeah,
And there
more
was
than a
a
day.
lot of corruption that's happening, that his system was not efficient anymore, so eventually he has to step down. So now we have probably a new hero here, who is Dr. Rui Maria Araujo. And he has been nominated for the post as Prime Minister, the government said at a press conference. And it seems that this party, the ruling party, the CNRT, is actually the most voted party in the last elections that they had. So he seems to be the most likely candidate to replace Gusmao as of now.
There's a lot of issues that needs to be addressed in East Timor, of course, and I think choosing someone that people can really look up to address all the critical issue in this former Portuguese colony of 1.2 million people is definitely the most urgent one. And he seems to have very good credential, having a medical degree at Universitas Udayana on Indonesia's resort island of Bali in 1994. He has a master degree in public health from Otago University in New Zealand. So in a sense, I think he might be able to address the health issue in East Timor. I've spoken to a few East Timor activists, and it seems like what they need is good access to education, to healthcare, and all the other basic needs of society there.
And other problems that East Timor is facing is, of course, economic problems, and that's something that they have faced since the independence, even since Gusmao's time. That was something that he failed to address, even as the premier of the country, and that is something whoever's that's going to take over after Gusmao, it could be this health minister that we're talking about. One of the things that he has to look at is the economic side of
I think every country
East Timor.
needs to look at its economic sides. Gowri, I want to ask you a question. I
Yes,
know
go
I
ahead.
asked you a lot of questions.
Yes, you do.
Do you know what is ASEAN?
Well, working in Durian ASEAN, I'm pretty sure I know what ASEAN
Do you think
is.
your friends know about ASEAN?
They probably know what it stands for, but maybe not the full effect that ASEAN has on this region.
Well, do you know which country, their population also share the same kind of dilemma as Malaysia when it comes to awareness of ASEAN?
Let me guess, Vietnam?
Yes.
Yay.
So ASEAN, alarmingly, quote unquote alarmingly, are known to most Vietnamese. I don't blame Vietnamese. I actually blame ASEAN for not putting its branding well in a position that people will actually want to know more about. So apparently, 70% of Vietnamese has no idea what the bloc does, and they have no idea what is AEC. They have no idea what the hell is a single market under ASEAN's proposal. So it's quite sad in a way.
It is very sad, but like you said earlier, of course it's not just the Vietnamese, Malaysians as well, probably Singaporeans, Indonesians, and all the other countries in ASEAN. There's always this one group of people that are so well versed, and they are very knowledgeable about what ASEAN is, what the AEC is, what all about the economic integration. But the sad part is those group of people are usually in the minority, and majority of the people in the country are still quite unclear about ASEAN. All they know is what ASEAN stands for, the abbreviation.
I think the well-known survey would be the 2012 survey commissioned by the ASEAN Secretariat, showing 80% of urban Southeast Asian, which include us of course, heard about ASEAN, but 76% of those surveyed were not aware of its function, and I don't blame them. Like, you use a lot of jargons like AEC, like ASEAN connectivity and all that. Like, who actually have an idea what the hell it means, right?
And yeah, especially if you don't come from an economic background, it could take a while for you to digest and to fathom all these different ideas and different.
Yeah, I mean, when I say to you, we are going to create a single market, what comes to your mind? Not Pasar Malam, right?
Well,
you should go to this site called Chinese New Asia, the news about ASEAN, alarmingly unknown to most Vietnamese. You should go to the YouTube. Actually, they did a survey among urban Southeast Asian Vietnamese in Vietnam, and they found out that a lot of them have never heard it before and have no idea what does AEC nor a single market means.
and of course, is also mentioned in this news, it's not about the urbanites. It's also to do with to reach out to people who are in the suburbs or in the rural areas where it's hard to actually get something that is so dry and so economic, to actually reach out to those people and to help them relate to something like an economic blog.
That's true. So anyway, that's the end of our discussion today. Stay tuned with us later on at Durian Heat, where we will discuss about Valentine's Day. Is it haram or not? And of course, you guys feel free to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that.
And also we have a TuneIn app that you can look for us and listen to us anywhere, anytime.